To our work session.
Motion to open work session, Chairman.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Resnick, you going to start us off tonight? Or this afternoon?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Hopefully not tonight.
So some months back, the board approved having a water and sewer rate study performed, and so we have with us here tonight Bobby Sills from Nelsonick Enterprises. Myself and Brandon and Tim have worked with Bobby for several months now to do a lot of research into our water system and our rates and so forth, and so he's going to come this afternoon and kind of take you through all that and answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Seals, the floor is yours. Is that microphone?
It is.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Bobby Sills with Nelsonick Enterprises. Have an office in Athens, Georgia, but do work throughout the state of Georgia and some work in North Carolina. I've got about 27 years of planning background with cities and counties, mostly in the public utility arena, capital improvement plans and financial plans of that sort, as well as comprehensive planning for communities. Tonight, the main objective was to discuss the findings and the recommendations of the rate study. We were also going to look at maybe even doing implementation, but we decided to back off to give the commissioners more time to look through the rate study, as well as provide some recommendations to finalizing it, because right now it's in draft format for your review, and I'll go through those draft findings tonight. So, agenda, the big picture, I wanted to talk a little bit about the legal requirements, including system development charges, which are also known as TAP fees, and rates, fees, and charges. Also discuss a little bit about the capital improvements that are coming, and revenue sufficiency in general, and cost allocation, that's including water versus wastewater cost, as well as certain customer classes, like you have residential, you have commercial. We did look at that as part of the study. And then finally, I want to talk about cost recovery, which is what kind of revenue increases you'll be needing in order to pay for these new projects. On the legal issues, the Georgia Development Impact Fee drives impact fees, but as part of that, they provide an option for water and wastewater utilities to not do the DCA requirements. There's some procedural requirements for doing impact fees, and they can be kind of time consuming, has to deal with updating your comprehensive plan every year and providing a capital improvement element within that comprehensive plan. You can avoid that, but also DEFA requires that your impact fee or connection fee in this case should not exceed a prorated fair share of that cost. So we looked at that as part of the study. And then also on the rates, fees, and charges side, basically there's no specific state law on that, but there is a lot of case law, and in general, as long as there's a rational nexus to your cost recovery mechanisms, they're usually upheld in court. You have to be really, really far out there in what you're charging for it to be something challenged and successfully challenged. So on your existing rates, currently you have, and I'll talk about the single dwelling here, you charge $18.61 for a minimum bill, and that includes 2,000 gallons in a month. And then thereafter, you charge $3.76 per 1,000 gallons of water metered. You charge a little bit more for multi-dwellings, $25.78 per month, and then a 2-inch meter will get $47.34 a month, and that's in relationship to the capacity needed for those different types of land uses. And then for the City of Grace specifically, there's no monthly charge. But all volumes is charged at $3.76 cents per 1,000 gallons for all customers. And then on the wastewater side, you have a similar base bill. There's no designation of customer class types, but it's $18.61 per month, and the unit charge is $4.82 per 1,000 gallons. And again, that base bill includes 2,000 gallons of water, or wastewater. The wastewater is calculated by the metered water, so they assume that whatever they take in, they put back out. We looked at a bill comparison with several communities, and the caveat on the bill comparisons is it's really hard to do an apples-to-apples look at other communities on what they charge, because we really don't know if water is subsidizing wastewater or wastewater is subsidizing water, or if the general fund of those communities is subsidizing the utility or vice versa. There's also SPLOST considerations, and in today's world we have the ARPA funds, so costs are really hard to do a comparison, but we did it anyway. And as you can see in the chart, Jones County, for the sample that we took, is right about in the middle. And with what we're proposing in rates, it will go up, but that's comparing it to the existing rates of your surrounding communities. We don't know if they're going to need to go up too, given the inflationary pressures and other capital needs. So that chart just shows you where you would end up if everybody else stayed the same. The next item is the capital improvements, and this chart will most likely need to be updated. I'm showing about 20 million needed related to the water system. Graham Road expansion is about 3.3 million. The North Light and Tie elevated tank is going to be 2.3 million. Highway 49 expansion is going to be 6 million. There's some various water supply projects. It's going to be about 3.2 million. There's another new well on Graham Road specifically, 3.7. And a water treatment plant in Henderson is about 1.8 million. So on the revenue sufficiency slide, you can see in FY21, is sort of our last audited year, you're collecting about 2.8 million in water and sewer sales, and with the water, sewer, and debt expenses, you're expending about 1.99 million. That leaves you with a net of about 800,000 to help in depreciation of your assets, replacement, stuff like that, and your bond holders and even GFA, if you had GFA loans, they require you to have this extra coverage for that purpose of extension and renewal. And then FY22, which is not quite over yet, we projected out, that's going to drop a little bit to about $600,000 net. And then in FY23, when that debt payment comes in, it drops down to $64,000 net. And that's why we're here tonight, is to talk about that, the impact of the capital program and the debt associated with the capital program. It's kind of pushing the need for the rates to go up. So on the cost allocation, we use the American Water Works Association. They provide the manual. It's called the M1 manual. It's the principle of water and charges, and we use that methodology for your system. One of the methodologies is the base extra capacity, which as customers use it, there are customers that use more in the summertime, or they might use more for laundry or something. So there's a peaking characteristic. Same with the industry. So those costs are allocated in the method for average day, peak day, and even peak hour. And we allocate your assets based on what they're used for. And so that's how the methodology we used on water. Wastewater is a little bit easier because the capacity The peaking issue is more related to I&I, and that's just spread across all your customers. So there's really no need to look at specific customer classes on that. And then we also looked at the connection fee costs, going back to the system development charge. Currently, you're charging less than what the contractor does for doing under the street bores to the long side. So you're actually losing money on that, because the current fee is $1,500. They charge $1,550, and that doesn't even include the meter cost or anything else like that. That's also added on. So we'll be making recommendations on that. On the cost recovery, the majority of revenue is from your residential class. We did see that non-residential customers do have a higher cost, but that may be because it's a small sample. You have a very small non-residential customer base. So currently, we're going to continue recommending using your same rate structure, but maybe just monitor that as your system grows. There might be an opportunity to modify that to get more revenue from your non-residential customers. Wastewater seems to be not recovering operating costs. It's just breaking even. It's not really covering any debt or anything like that. So we're going to be making recommendations related to that to correct that. And we also provided in the report some alternative recovery mechanisms that you can consider, including water conservation rates and a non-residential rate. So when we got to the recommendations, we know that you're going to need some additional revenues to pay. So one thing was looking at potentially going at a 5% increase on the unit charge and a 7% increase on the base charge. And that represents about 90 cents on the base charge and about 30 cents on the unit charge. But that would be over time. Wastewater, to get it to be paying for itself, we're looking at a 9% increase. Connection fees, we would recommend going up to $2,500 to cover those costs that I talked about before. And also the 1 inch and 2 inch, same, would be going up to consider that cost of the connection, and as well as the cost of the capacity of that connection. And then also in the future consider modifying rate structure. But tonight, we really wanted to just present those findings and get feedback on potential alternatives that you would want to look in finalizing this report and coming back maybe in next month to a formal recommendations. There's discussion of pulling the ordinance so that instead of doing a complete ordinance update, you would do it by resolution, so you don't have to go through the multiple steps of an ordinance update, and we'd clean up that. You'd still have to do it this time because it's an ordinance, but in the future, future updates would be a little bit more streamlined. And then we're looking at trying to do a multi-year increase, get approval on, so you don't have to keep coming back each year. And that's all I had. I'm ready for any comments or any direction you'd like for the finalizing this report, or any questions you might have on the report.
Well, I guess a couple of things that really stand out is that, one, for sure, the bores under the street that we're losing, you know, it's costing us more than we're charging for it is huge to me. I mean, we shouldn't be in that position ever, because that's not a sustainable model at all. You know, and I don't know, maybe I've thought a lot about this when we started talking about water rates, you know, and we've touted that we hadn't raised rates in over 5 years, you know, and that's a good thing. But at some point you look back and go, man, we didn't raise rates. Now we're at a point where we have to raise rates because we're no longer in a business model situation. We're in a losing money situation, especially, and it goes hand in hand with a bad situation, the economy, the way it is. The economy's great, but our materials and our cost of doing business is sky high, yet our product is the same price. Everywhere you go now, from the gas stations to the grocery stores to the restaurants, you know, your cost is so much higher. So while we feel good that we've kept fees the same for 5 years, it may be the worst time in the world to have to increase them, but we know that we have to. And I think, you know, I really appreciate the level of what they've gone through with these here. All right. So with these analysis and the report here, because it gives us really good information to go on. One thing when you're looking at, so the potential ways to increase is, tell me if I'm reading this wrong or listening to it wrong. So you got the minimum bill, and then you have the unit charge, and is the increase that's being proposed across the board on both of them, or is it on one or the other, or?
The minimum bill, we're looking to increase at a higher rate than the unit charge, and what that does is give you a little bit more revenue stability, because the minimum bill is based on the customers themselves, and there is a high cost to providing that service all the time, even if they don't use water. And so then the unit charge would be a little bit lower increase, though, and more related to the actual variable costs.
Right.
But it does include capital costs as well.
Yeah, and that would be what I would think is, you know, if we're going to have to increase, then the user, quote, the user has to inherit the increase, but the unit charge is the more you use, the more you're having to pay for additional use. So I like that the minimum bill is. I'd like to see something level across the minimum bill. So you talked about increases. How are we looking at increases? Is there a specific time? Is there a cutoff time for the increases?
The current report shows us through FY 28, actually, we've modeled all the way out.
Okay.
Not necessarily that you would have to approve all those years. You could decide to do half of those, portion of those, and even if you had gone and approved a specific rate increase, you could always come back next year and change that. You're not tied to keeping that rate schedule over time, but it does give you some convenience and the customer convenience, because they know what's coming down the road.
Yeah, Chairman, that's one thing that I would think, you know, at least I would like us to look at, we're in a volatile time right now in an unstable situation. We know that there's got to be an increase, so I'd like for us to look at whatever that number is that we know we've got to have for the next 2 or 3 years. Let's go ahead and look at putting that in now, and then reassess maybe halfway through the life expectancy of this increase, you know, in 3 years.
Don't do all of them, just let's see where we're at.
Yeah,
Go
so we
one
know
by
we got to
one.
do something, because we can't keep doing business over the next 3 years if we don't increase. But at least do something that will get us through the next years, that gets our debt service, because like I said from the beginning, we knew we had to have a rate increase to be able to expand the system, to be able to maintain the system, because we're in a state of going backwards. So, you know, and able to go forward, we've got to sustain it, and that costs money. So I'd like to see if we could ask them to at least give us some numbers on maybe an increase now that will get us through 3 years, not an incremental increase, and then in 3 years look at it and say, okay, are we okay to stay where we are? We may not need those last 3 years of increases, because my hope is that our cost of materials and our cost of maintenance goes down, or at least stabilize, and then we're not guaranteeing that next 3 years of increases. I mean, they may be there, but at least that we finance the knowns now and then reassess on the unknowns.
I like the idea, just reassess, let's figure for 3 years. Set a, set a rate and relook at it.
Right. It's like in any business situation, you have to reevaluate periodically, yearly, every 2 years. 3 years might be stretching it, but who knows what the market's going to be this time next year. It could be worse, it could be better. We hope for the better, though. But we definitely need to make some changes.
So as we instruct them to go forward, what, you got an idea kind of what you're looking for rate-wise, or?
One other thing, Chairman, do we need to look at a rate or a dollar amount? I mean, a percentage or a dollar amount,
I just say a dollar amount, it's more
Yeah.
comprehensive.
I'm thinking that too, and then the customer will know this is my increase for 3 years. It's not, okay, it's gonna increase this year, it's gonna increase again next year, and again next year. It's almost like rip the Band-Aid off instead of nickel and dime it, percentage increases, go ahead and set what we know we gotta have to pay the debt and maintain the system, because it is a business. I don't think anybody goes into a business and says, well, let's see, what am I gonna charge for shoes this year? And then next year, I'm gonna increase the cost of shoes, and then the next year, increase them again. You kind of get a path forward thinking in a business model, and I think this is a enterprise fund, so it is a business fund. It's not it shouldn't be supplemented by the general fund, and I think we need to recognize that. But I think all of us commissioners need to be able to stand in front of their constituents and say, we towed the line for 5 years, now we just have to increase. And I don't have any problem saying that. I'm not gonna like it. I pay 4 water bills, so I'm not happy every month when I strike them water bill checks. But I think it's a necessary evil if we want to have a sustainable water system.
I'm lucky to have a very good well, but that could change any day. So, and with that, like I said, I think just a set amount rather than the percentage. People understand, dollars better than they do percentage.
So could we ask them to go to the halfway point of the 6 years, do a 3-year halfway point, and then put that as a dollar amount instead of a percentage annually increase, do it as a dollar amount?
I think they understand it more.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think, because when we present it to the public, if it's it's a $5 increase, not a, 0.5% or a 5% or whatever of your existing bill, because people, I think sometimes, that gets confused with, okay, most people don't know, do I use the minimum usage? Do I use tier 1, tier 2, tier 3? I just know what my bill is. And if they know my bill's going up $5, then, go ahead and get mad now. I know my $5 is what it's going to be, but from our side, we know that it's going to take $5 to fit. And I'm not saying that's the number. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing a number. I have no idea what it may be, but, maybe $1, $5, or $10. I don't know, but until we see those numbers. But if it's $5 and we know that we got to have $5 to get through to sustain the program, and then the user knows that it's a $5 increase.
you see any problem with that? Just
No, and
dollar amount?
it could be very helpful, especially if you put it in terms of, this is a cup of Starbucks coffee that you're going to have to pay a little extra to get these new projects in, just so you have a reliable source of good water. I think people will pay a cup of coffee for that.
And then we guarantee that is a 3-year
Yep.
rate. That's not it's not going to increase this year, and evaluate and increase up or down next year, or maybe up more next year. It's take the hit and guarantee it for 3 years, that it's not gonna increase.
We can add that to the recommendations. Any other things we can do for you?
So do we need to look at the connection fees, the tap fees? Because we really need to do something about this. And I don't know how we do that. I don't know if that's a, maybe that's an across the board, as long as we get above what, because I don't think we're looking to make money off of tap fees,
No,
but we sure can't lose money
no,
on it.
No.
I
can't
mean,
keep that up, not pay.
For that, I'd say, let's figure out what we know it cost to put one in, and then, go, base it off of that,
That's a question, I mean, would that be a figure we need to have inflation built into, because we don't know what, you tell me.
I've seen communities look at that particular fee on an annual basis and adjust it based on, what the labor costs, what the material costs, because that can go up and down depending on where you are in the economy. Copper goes way up and it comes back down.
Commissioner Martin, you got any questions?
Well, just real quickly, Sam mentioned, I think Sam knows mentioned treating this enterprise run like a business. And one of the issues that we've always had is that we are passed through for sewer for the city of Macon. And I've been there long enough to watch that move from, I think 178 to 250, and now it's $388,000 a year. Which equates to about $9 million of serviceable debt that we could use for expansion of water projects, putting in a wastewater treatment plant, and just building up our infrastructure. But we're paying that out because we're not treating this like a business. At some point, we got to stop leasing waste, and we've got to own that process to bring that $388,000 a year in as profit, or at least service debt for the system that we're using. So I'm not a fan of fee increases. I understand the business model. I understand the struggles that we have, but I think there's some internal things that we have to do to make that make sense. And one of those is the wastewater treatment facility, and stop paying the city of Macon $388,000 and bringing that back in, because over a 3-year period, that's over $1 million that we don't get to recuperate. And that $1 million could be back in our system. The other part is, I think, across the board, we leverage the existing customer base to fund expansion, and I think that's unfair. Literally, everybody benefits from it in the long run, but we pay for it, at least those users. So my suggestion is going to be, either making the enterprise portion of it or the expansion portion of it a part of every citizen and parcel owner's responsibility. And whether that's, a special tax allocation district to support water expansion across the county, where everybody that's a landowner or a property owner participates in that, so expansion happens naturally, and it's not contingent upon 3% or 8%, but contingent upon $400,000 to $800,000 worth of new money infused into the system annually. And then more importantly, or in conjunction with that, which is equally important, that water expansion across the county will allow us to add fire protection. And I think that should be heavily considered, because without that, we all struggle. And the reality is we can't get to some citizens that are far away, not only with water, but with water protection, because we lack the infrastructure to do that. So again, I'm not just a fan of, I'm not a fan of just increasing fees, but looking at a solution that's business-wise as far and constituent and county-wise. So that's kind of where I am at this point. And even though I've looked at this for a time, I just didn't see that as a solution that was offered. And I'm just going to throw that out there, that again, that parcel or millage, the tax allocation district for supporting water and sewer expansion across the county, and quickly bringing those funds that we pay out to Macon Water Authority at 388 back in-house to really support and undergird and even pay off some of the bonds that we have out there already, and any new money that we need for expansion in support of the system.
Thank you, Commissioner Barber.
Chairman, Commissioner Martin, I agree 100% on the getting away from using other people to have our sewer system. I think our issue is, part of it is whether we're going to be able to get future funding if we don't have our rates where GFA says they need to be. The second part is how long, it's a chicken and egg thing. It takes us a long time to get out from under the current situation we're in with sewer. But I 100% agree that we could better use that money we're spending with another system already built, and we could be putting it towards ours. As far as the tax allocation district, the way I understand it, you have to determine what that district is before you apply that tax. And I think we might could do generically locations, but it might restrict us that we're expanding outside of a predetermined tax anticipation district or tax allocation district when we expand the system. I'm not completely opposed to the, if we could somehow divide up the expansion part of it to the part that we're charging the parcel owners, so that, but then how do you take that back from the parcel owner that doesn't have water, and then they get water and they're paying for the water and they already paid for it as do they stop paying the TAD fee once they get the water? It's a tough situation, because I do believe that what we're doing is helping the entire county when it comes to having water in areas that we can, for fire protection and reduction of their insurance costs and all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I see where you're going with it, and I like that. I just don't know how we can give it and take it back, or take it back and then give it, as far as the tax with the parcel. But it's work.
That's probably the tough part. But New York lives with it, right? And I'm going to say, as a citizen in this county that owns multiple parcels, if I know that my water system is going to be properly managed by the county to the best of its ability, leveraging all the resources of the county, enterprise fund, et cetera, that number probably stays out there. And again, if it's $25 or if it's $250,000, whatever it is, it's for the full maintenance and expansion of that system, because it also undergirds fire protection. And at the end of the day, those two go hand in hand. We got a great fire department, but if they get there and there's no water, what good is the water department and the fire department at that point to the citizens? So, give and take. I don't know that we have to do that, as much as we need to create a strategic vision for 5, 10, 20 years on what that water expansion looks like, what the support looks like, and again, how we allocate those funds that we collect. And again, for me, it's wastewater treatment plant priority. It's water going out to where we need it to go, where we plan for it to go, and it's fire protection. So I don't think you have to do a take back, knowing that you're going to undergird at least those three components. And if there's a miscellaneous area, so be it. But those three right there are going to demand continuous support, because we know we've got some pipes in the ground that are older than all of us that we probably need to go back and fix, that we haven't planned for. And even though the construction account has a few dollars in it, doesn't have enough dollars to do that. So again, I'm not going to give and take. I'm going to put it out there so we have that continuous support that outlives us, but make sure that the county is taken care of, because I can't imagine being on the edge of Juliet or near Baldwin or on the other side, and there is no water and there's no fire protection. But here's a system and a place that we strategically put in place to cover those things. So I'm going to leave it up to the smarter people, whether that's Jason and the regional commission and ACCG, to come back with some great solutions for us. And our partner, who just shared some good insight on the water rates to help us figure that part out, because I think that's essential, and it goes hand in hand. Again, I could support a rate increase if we had those components in there. I couldn't support it without it, because I need a full or comprehensive solution not just for me and not just for my district, but for the entire county. And we got a lot of people that still don't have water. And we made some good strides, but if we bring that 388 in-house and do some other things, man, there's so much more that we can do. And I'm excited about the opportunity to do that. And tonight is a good step in that direction.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Martin.
Appreciate it. Shannon, can you call me on the 256 number? Because number's about to die.
Yes. Bye.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Brady, have you got any comments or anything?
Just quick math, real quick. I came up with $2,000 to do that. That's what it's costing us.
Thank you.
And we're charging 15, so almost $500.
That's what we're losing right now.
If it's alongside, if we have to board up on our road, because we don't have the equipment or the personnel to do that,
And we're charging 1,500.
we're charging 15. And that's a conservative over there. That's
Right.
Can you look back over the past 3 months at all taps and just see what the highest cost tap would have been? And that way, get worst case scenario numbers.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tim, you got anything?
Okay, one more question, Chairman. So the expansion projects that we're doing, the new wells, the upgraded wells, the elevated tank, that is going to help us with fire systems as well.
It's a tank a little more than anything.
Okay.
Production just helps you keep all the lines full, keep everything up full.
Because I think Daylon makes a really good point. We got to look at this in a holistic approach, not piecemeal it. And that waste treatment is part of it. You know, even that it might be a harder to get to, but I agree. We got to look at it in that type of manner. So I'm glad that the water side of it is encompassing not just residential and commercial water, but fire safety too. Okay.
Jason, you got anything else?
One question on the sewer, Bobby. Is it relatively easy to go into the model and if Tim gives us a number on a sewer treatment plant and some collection lines, can we go and plug that in that model and see what that does to rates? Either now or somewhere down the road.
In the grand scheme, yes, on water and wastewater, but it won't differentiate that particular cost on the wastewater side. We can modify as part of our update,
Okay.
a separate line for just wastewater projects, because we did this, it was all water,
Yeah.
that bond, so we focused strictly on that.
Okay.
We did recognize wastewater wasn't covering its cost as it's set up.
Okay.
Any other questions? We've got a citizen like to come forward. Thank you.
Curious, why,
I need you to come up and introduce yourself.
I'm Doug Rupke, I live on Coppergate Lane. I'm just curious why, I live in the county, I pay $18.61 for 2,000 gallons. If I lived in the city, I'd be able to use 10,000 gallons for the same rate.
It's different. The city's different than the county.
But it's in the water rate.
I think the city still gives 2,000 gallons for their base rate. And then if you have sewer, then you pay sewer on top of that.
Well, it says, yeah, in the rate schedule, it says City of Gray per 1,000, $3.76.
That's what we charge the city of Gray.
That's what we charge.
Yeah.
That's what you're charging? What does the
That's what we-
customer pay?
We don't,
I don't know.
we don't do the city's
They
billing.
do their own
So
billing.
they do their own billing. That's just what we charge them.
You're charging the City of Gray that?
Yeah, they're.
They
that's
buy
what
water
customers
from
charge.
us.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't say that in here. Then another question is, the connection fees, same day connect, is $10, and after 3 o'clock it's $25, and for reconnect it's $50. same amount of labor on all that.
I honestly can't remember all the rationale behind those numbers. I'd have to dig back through notes and see those. I remember there was considerable discussion amongst the board and staff as we
Yeah, one of
developed
the
all
things that
those.
we talk about, so same day connect and same day disconnect are not exactly the same, because a same day connect means I'm building a house and I'll say, okay, I'll be ready with my plumbing on January 5th. Can you be there on January 5th to turn it on? Good. I don't pay my water bill and it's Friday night at 8 o'clock and I come in and I'm out of water and I want you to turn my water on right then. We have to bring somebody in, the department's closed, we have to bring somebody in, get a vehicle, pay them overtime to go out and turn their meter back on. So it's a little bit different there, and in the, even though the verbiage is exactly same as same day, it's two different processes.
Yeah, it says after 3 o'clock it's 25 for the connection. But if you're getting reconnected, it's $50. If you're getting reconnected, you're not kind of hooked into a schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, there's a total difference there.
Yeah. So it's the unknown, I think, that we're having to, and I mean, honestly, if you're planning to have yours connected and you didn't pay a bill, I mean, we had to suffer some cost of the customer not paying the bill. We didn't get our money even though we gave the service. So, yeah, I think that's one of the issues we discussed. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the rate increase, I don't use the minimum, even though I got my bill increased double. Yeah, I think it's an issue with the water company and smart meters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got $8,000 gallon of usage this month.
Brandon, can you look at that for me? Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious
So
about
we do
that.
that, we do have to make, but Brandon would be glad to get with you and look at,
Okay.
discuss.
Yeah, because my neighbor, we did a pressure test on his and he didn't have any pressure for close to a month and they replaced the smart meter. Okay, if my meter's bad or something, I have to pay a $25 testing fee according to the ordinance to have them come out and test it. But that's what the ordinance says.
Yeah, I think that's if you request it to be done outside of, if there's a need for it, the department will do it.
If you're having issues with your water supply, we'll come out, no problem, take everything on our side.
Yeah.
Brandon be glad to get with you after the meeting.
Yeah, we'll-
Yeah, it says fee for rereading meter.
Rereading it, yeah.
Yeah, that's something, different, I guess, that's the numbers on the meter. Okay, thank you, I'm just kind of curious.
And Mr. Bobby, I appreciate it. I meant to tell you, thank you when you,
Thank you. Welcome. Anything else?
no.
No,
But
this
we
is
wanna
good
thank you very
information.
much.
Right, very good information.
Thank
Very
you very
thorough.
much. Any other thing on this work session? Motion to adjourn to that work session for a break.
Motion to adjourn, Chairman.
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
I didn't, look. I thought it was at 5 o'clock. I was here early.
We have a public meeting at 5:30
Forgot where to start.
for the future land use map. Okay, all right, thanks. I have Sam. Kate Sam.
Availability charge for non-customers until they, is the actual way of doing it. TADs, there's a lot of legal issues with that, and equity and all that. A special rate for that area.